It's safe to say that no single person, other than maybe Lucille Ball, had more influence over the direction of television than Fred Silverman. The man with the golden gut, as Time magazine called him, made his name in the late 60s and early 70s at CBS, cleaning out old shows and making room for groundbreaking programs like All in the Family, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Sonny and Cher. After moving to ABC, Silverman reinvented that network with shows like Charlie's Angels, Three's Company, and The Love Boat. When NBC hired Silverman as its president and CEO in 1978, they hoped that he would do for that network what he had done for the other two, move them from third place into first. Silverman had an idea and a strategy. He felt that what NBC lacked the most was a big-name marquee show, and he knew exactly what that show would be.
I give you Supertrain.
The concept for Supertrain had been at NBC for a while, and it was ready to enter pre-production when Silverman arrived. It was essentially the same idea that Silverman had used at ABC with The Love Boat, a single location that could move around and take on different passengers and guest stars each week. Basically, Supertrain was supposed to be The Love Boat on rails. Silverman went all in on Supertrain, convinced it would become a smash hit. He tapped veteran producer Dan Curtis to oversee the show and decided that instead of being farmed out to an independent production company, which would share the revenues with NBC, the network would completely produce the show in-house. While the network would have to pony up a lot of money to produce the show, it would be ready to reap all the rewards when the show became the hit that Silverman knew it would be. The Supertrain really was The Love Boat on rails, featuring amenities that would have been more at home on a cruise ship, including swimming pools, shopping centers, and in one of the most 1970s things ever, its own disco. Oh, and it was nuclear powered. The train itself was huge, too, and costly. 2 scale models were built for shooting exterior sequences, and huge sets were created for each of the train's 9 cars, all of which appeared to be bigger on the inside than the outside, as well as the train's terminus at Grand Central Station. All in all, NBC spent a whopping $5 million just to build the models, rails, and sets for the show, and then another $1 million in production and publicity costs.
You know what I think, Winfield? You're letting your psychotic fascination with railroads lead you into a suicidal gamble with the future of this company.
It was the most expensive TV show ever produced up to that point, and NBC pulled out all the stops to promote the show, even going so far as to recruit one of NBC's few hit shows at the time to beat the drum for Supertrain.
Good morning, Houston, Texas. This is today, Wednesday, February 7th. And if you're in South Texas, be grateful you're not in Washington, D.C. at this hour. There's a snowstorm underway in the nation's capital, and the only things moving may be farmers staging demonstrations on their tractors. Good morning, all. This is the Today program. I'm Tom Brokaw, here with Gene Shalit and Jane Pauley. Busy at work even as we get started during this hour of the Today program. They'll have ordinary birth certificates. We'll be talking about that during this half hour of Today.
According to my timetable, there's going to be a Supertrain pulling in the next half hour, and Jack Perkins is going to tell you all about it, some train. However, you know I'm a big train fan. I never, however, have been on a train that cost $6 million, at least not to my knowledge I haven't. But there is a Supertrain coming. Why, there it is. And Jack Perkins is going to be along in this half hour to tell us all about the Supertrain that hits NBC tonight, and we hope it's a hit.
And NBC hopes it stays on the tracks. There's a lot of money invested in that one. $6 million may be the low side of the budget, it turns out.
Good morning from the MGM lot here in Los Angeles. Usually when we do a piece about a new television program going on the air, we come and interview the star of it. Well, we can't do that in this case because, as many critics have said, the star of this new show is a train.
Supertrain is ready to depart.
It's not even a real train, though a lot of money has been spent to make it look real. It exists only here on the sound stages at MGM, where set designers build it at enormous cost. To build this elaborate mock-up, a train going nowhere, 250 workers labored in shifts around the clock for 3 months. All that manpower and overtime got to be frightfully expensive. How expensive? Well, reportedly at least $5 million just to build the set. The program, if it doesn't work, could be canceled after 13 weeks. And that's how it goes on board a $5 million set called a Supertrain. For today, Jack Perkins, Los Angeles.
Now that is some train. I love to travel by train, and I think I'm going to go on that one, but on the inside of it rather than the outside of it. That's on tonight on NBC, Supertrain.
The 2-hour premiere movie generated reasonably good ratings, mostly due to curious people tuning in to see what all the hype was about. But unlike The Train, the show never quite got up to speed. Once they saw just how ridiculous the show was, audiences tuned out.
On this week's Supertrain Mystery, Hail to the Chief. Two dwarfs and a magician replace a presidential candidate with a double so real, even his wife can't tell.
The ratings plunged, and after 5 weeks, NBC pulled the show for retooling. A new executive producer was hired to replace Curtis. 2/3 of the cast were fired in a money-saving effort. New scripts were commissioned. A new opening was shot. And the network moved the show from its Wednesday evening slot to Sunday nights at 10. When the show returned on April 7th, viewers got a look at the new face of Supertrain. And they still didn't like it.
It's the all-new Supertrain, loaded with stars, loaded with action, coming at you next on NBC.
Ratings continued to fall, and one last-minute desperate retooling took place. The 9th episode, airing on May 5th, tried to take advantage of the show's ridiculous premise by moving in a camp direction, even adding a laugh track to what had been intended to be a drama.
Too late!
Viewers had had enough, and so had the network. NBC pulled the show off its schedules in the middle of the May sweeps period. Supertrain was officially canceled later that week. When the season was finally over, Supertrain wound up ranked 69th out of 114 shows. NBC never came close to recouping its investment, and the show's failure nearly bankrupted the network. Silverman did manage to greenlight some hits for NBC, but his big-name marquee show would continue to elude him until he saw an act on another network that he knew would surely be the hit he needed.
You fool!
But that's another story.